4 years ago, Ido, Gal, my partner, and me decided that we wanted to create a new kind of fraud management solution. Unlike the existing solutions that were out there, that were throwing the problem back at the merchant by giving them scores and giving them tools to run the fraud operation, we wanted to create an end-to-end solution. Basically, we wanted to give a simple answer, a yes or no. Is it a good transaction or is it a bad transaction? On top of that, we threw a chargeback guarantee to make sure they trust us. When we dig into the data of the industry, one figure popped out most dramatically. The ratio between chargeback and declines was 1 to 10. It meant that an average merchant declines 10 transactions out of fear of one fraudulent one. That seemed excessive. And we formed our messaging and our focus accordingly. Instead of going with the prevention, traditional messaging of risk factor and how chargeback will ruin your business, we went with a rather positive messaging of enablement. And we tried educating merchants how Riskified can increase their sales by decreasing the number of false declines. 4 years later, we already raised over $35 million. We are approving billions of dollars a year in transactions, working with some of the biggest merchants out there, both brick and mortar, traditional ones like Foot Locker, Macy's, Burberry, and also tech-first companies like Viagogo, Essence, and Wish.com. What we learned while working with all these merchants is that the dilemma of enablement versus prevention that we spoke about actually is larger than that and is in the core of the checkout process. We have merchants that are using the traditional data-heavy checkout process and form, while we have other merchants that opt to decrease friction and increase conversion by asking for less data. Obviously, when asking for less data, it's a bit harder to do risk assessment. That's why we started devising mechanisms to help us bridge the data gap. So we can increase friction in the frictionless scenario, but only when needed. For example, we have an SMS confirmation mechanism. So we don't want to apply it to all the orders. We only apply it to the marginal order that we're not confident enough a bit with our machine learning algorithms. Then we also make sure that it's appropriate. We make sure that the phone number is an actual mobile phone number, and we make sure that the phone number belongs to the cardholder. All right? You don't want to SMS the fraudster asking him, did you do this transaction? He's going to answer, hell yeah. So the same way we can increase friction sometimes in order to approve marginal orders, we can also decrease friction. Many times, when a person gets to the data-heavy form, we already know a lot about them. We already know what their browsing pattern on the website was because we track their clickstream and their browsing. So we know that they've been around the same product for the last 2 weeks from the same device. And basically, we could have reduced the number of parameters that you would ask for in the checkout form and reduce the friction. But the problem is that fraud management today comes in the end of the checkout process. Okay? So we can do the SMS thing, we do it, but it's less effective. But we have no way to actually reduce friction because the checkout process is rigid. The checkout process these days is like a bouncer. All right? It's just a blank thing standing there, one size fits all in front of the payment area. What it should be more like a host. It should be intelligent. It should know how to smile to a new good customer, and it should know how to keep an eye on the suspicious ones. There are a lot of talks recently about chatbots, how chatbots are going to revolutionize the digital shopping, how they're going to make it more adaptive, how they're going to increase retention, and how they're going to increase conversion. Mostly, Chatbots are discussed in relation to customer support and to recommendations. But really, if you think about it, chatbot kind of interaction is exactly what you want in the checkout process. It should be more like a security questionnaire and person that you meet in the airport. Practically, if we would have moved the interaction between the product, between the UI of the checkout and the fraud management service to be throughout the checkout process, we would have been able to reduce friction whenever possible and increase friction only when needed. This is what we are actually working on right now with some of our merchants, making Riskified the brain behind this new type of checkout. Thank you very much.